live now. Fine. I was just paying from. I got a notification on YouTube by the way.
It's coming from mine.
Oh, okay.
Got already.
Again,
My son is viewing our live streaming.
is DK in the call already? No.
I'm on the call.
From my side, I can see it's streaming already.
Let's communicate everything on WhatsApp, guys. Not on the live.
Hey, Kitty. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hey, hi.
Hi.
Thomas. Kitty is here.
Hi, Kirti. Morning.
Hi all, how's everyone doing?
All
Very good, thank you. Just jumping on to see, just show of support, see what's happening. No problem.
Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located. First of all, thanks for everyone to join on the live session. This is one of our series of a session continuously we are doing every month. Yeah. So today our major focus is on virtual desktop infrastructure with HCI, how affordable it is. Okay. To just give a feedback or discussion, these sessions we have started long back. It's actually from the December 22. And if anyone would like to just follow some more old sessions or the repeated ones, you can follow from this link, which is a QR code, which is below on this. And today, as a series of a session, we are focusing on virtual desktop infrastructure. What is that affordably available from the HCI perspective? This is a third session continuation on the YouTube live we are doing. Okay. And with this session, we just don't want to go away as a learning. So our goal is in this session to just not inspire you. It's even to ignite your passion and help you out to take it off for your day-to-day requirements on the technology and the infrastructure we are bringing in. So we have our entire team today who has been working closely together, and we wanted to share our experiences and help to you all to be in action with the latest technologies. Okay. And to start with, right, it's very important to all of us to know, to understand the usages of use cases of Azure Stack HCI, right? It is just it's just not a storage solution. It is even a hybrid capability. It has a built-in hybrid capability with the many requirements to fulfill, right? So that's why when we see the best of the outcome, best of the benefits of Azure Stack HCI, right, it starts even from for a simple one like a remote office, branch office, and edge infrastructure setup. It helps you to highly manage your performances and latency sensitive applications such as like a SQL Server. It actually tightly integrated with the Kubernetes and Windows Linux containers, and it helps you to scale out your storage requirements, and it has a built-in disaster readiness tools, and which is majorly defined with a software defined infrastructure like a trusted enterprise virtualization like a Hyper-V, right? And today's major focus, what we are doing on next 1 hour session is more on our virtual desktop infrastructure, okay? The flow of the entire session, what you could able to see is broken into 3 or 4 areas, okay? So to start with, how the traditionally Windows Server remote desktop services VDI works and how it is differentiating with the latest technologies on AVD on Azure and Azure Stack HCI, and how we can affordably start with a simple single node deployment on Azure Stack HCI and the latest one, which is Windows 365 for the assemblies. Okay. The overall flow, what we have considered or thought of is to start with basically how VDI can be affordable, and VDI can be helpful with the simple example of assembly organizations like a max of 50 users. Nevertheless, it even scales up to whatever the users we are looking at. So as of now, as affordability, the single point to start with, we are starting with the 50 user scenario. Okay. So Azure Stack HCI means it's very simple. It is basically a Microsoft HCI storage with built-in Azure hybrid capabilities. Okay. And when we are all using this has been there almost from 2 to 3 years in the market, right? Now, so without any surprise, customers in the past who deployed the solutions, we have been seeing Microsoft rising to become the leader in their respective area. Especially if you see this is one of a customer voice analysis which Gartner has done, and recently they published this in the Peer Insights chartboard, where it differentiates. Gartner has been differentiating the reports of a hyperconverged infrastructure containing with the 4 boxes diagram, with the radically differentiating from the last of a earlier quadrant mapping. Okay, so the customer voice analysis reports generated by Gartner is very good study case for us to understand over the years customers are stepping forward now. And even in this region, the APJ region or Asia Pacific region, we see the highest deployment region or a demand acceptance, right? Almost 1,145 reviews have been considered when they have done this survey. Then accordingly, this entire report has came up. Okay. So to start with, it's good to start with the basic, right? So it's a good to start with the basic. So when we see customers has two options for Azure Stack HCI. Okay, the first one comes is basically built in with Windows Server, right, which is with majorly from the data center, and which is with the recent announcement, even with the standard with the start with Azure Stack HCI. The second one is basically the right side one you see is the Azure Stack HCI OS, which is the current version is 22H2. Okay, so when we look at this, right, so many of us actually would have seen Azure Stack HCI in earlier discussions in our earlier sessions as well, right? We wanted this term safer to be properly used. So for example, properly described, okay? So overall understanding how extensively it is helpful, right? So when we see Azure Stack HCI as a safer, basically S stands for secure and scalable. By default, it has a built-in security capabilities and with the integration of Azure as well, or with Windows Server built in, right? And it is scalable for the storage, and it is affordable as well. And in one of our setups, we've seen that the performance is scaling almost 1.3 million with the 2 nodes of a HPE server. That's one of the things which is like a good benchmark to start for the performance, right? And built in, we have a reliability setup with the different solutions, and add-on is basically the hybrid. Okay, when we look at this structure, by default, it is something together to walk away with the different ideas and the information that helps customers to transform and to be with the Azure Stack HCI solution, right? In a simple manner to say, it's basically a future-ready solution. Now that we realize that there is a companies coming back from cloud and to use the on-premises environment, the fact that we are talking about doing more with less, right? It actually, the platform shows how we are able to help the companies with most affordable manner. The overall story of VDI and the today's structure on Azure Stack HCI is basically how do we structureize this kind of a VDI solution with starting from a single node. Okay. So to start with in a simple manner and a simple single server solution for an SMB, by just taking a simple setup for Windows Server 22 with a standard on a single server, right? Still, they have a capability inbuilt with the remote desktop services where they can able to manage their client, they can able to deploy the pool of devices with the remote desktop services on a VDI scenario. And nevertheless, being when I was speaking about the hybrid, it actually even helps if you want to have a management from Azure Arc as well. So it is basically a simple manner where on premises, you have a capability to manage entire infrastructure on a single node with the admin center to manage your day-to-day activities. Even if customer has a tedious set of a bigger environment, they can even manage the entire services from Azure Arc as well, right? So when we scale up the requirement, when we see a bigger picture beyond the SMB, right? Most of our customers, what they look at in a HCI combination is majorly for having a right security, reliability, and scalability, right? With the combination of a Windows Server, Azure Stack HCI, Windows Server 22, with the admin center, right? It's everything is affordable. Okay, that's where the total scenarios we would be talking about basically when we add on with the data center license on a Windows Server 22 and Azure Stack HCI. Okay, so with this, I would like to request my friend, colleague, to just jump on the screen sharing and help us to walk through on a Windows Server RDS and the VDI scenario. Go, over to you.
Thanks, Sama. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thanks, Sama, for the great sharing on the complexion of the overall understanding about how we can easily do more with less, right? We even single server deployment and have the capability to scale in the near future, right? So let's talk about the RDS and the VDI scenario, right? So there are two different ways to deploy remote desktop services. One is called session-based computing. That means the users will connect to the remote session host and access the application that is stored in the remote session host server, right, using the browser or the remote desktop client, right? And the other scenario is called virtual desktop infrastructure, right, where user remote into the particular server. They actually get a full Windows 10, Windows 11 machine with application pre-installed or published by the remote session host server. Therefore, this technology gives customer an easy way to provide access to the application and the data that's stored and managed in the central location, right? So from company perspective, right, they get lots of flexibility and reliability by doing this, right? And the users continue to work from anywhere, right, securely. And company have central management of the servers, applications, and data, right? And yet make it very simple to deploy those applications to the users, especially they are going to work from anywhere, right? So let's move forward. Let's take a look on the technology and the different components that are provided by the remote desktop services architecture, right? So these are the components that which are very important, like RD station host, RD connection broker, RD gateway, and RD web access, and so on, right? So the beautiful part of this, right, for a very small environment like a robo or edge deployment in a single server, you can have all those roles running inside a single server, even with Windows Server Standard Edition virtual machine, right? So let's take a look at this scenario. Right, with single server deployment using Windows Server 2022, right, even with Standard Edition, right, with storage spaces direct, right, where you can manage all the attached drive as a storage pool, right? Storage spaces can significantly improve read and write performance while maintaining the storage efficiency and keep the operation cost low, right? So this feature actually bind together the faster media like SSD as cache with the slower media, like for example, the spinner drive as capacity, right, to create a storage tier and moving the most frequently accessed file to the faster tier as a caching, right? So customer could set up 2 virtual machines, right? For example, right? So first virtual machine, it can run domain controller, right? As a DC, with the Active Directory running, right? And with the file server and can even run database server, right? And with second server, right, can be used for remote desktop services, right? So as simple as single server with Windows Server Standard Edition, we can actually achieve the goal, right? So this is a simple illustration. I use the diagram style to elaborate the scenario, right? So in the environment with the virtual machine, right, and the RDS server, right, this is how the IT administrator configure and allowing the user to actually remote into the environment and actually use the application that actually pre-installed inside the environment, right? And not limited to that, in the scenario where certain application that require GPU processing, right? So we can also liberate the technology called discrete device assignment. In short, we call it DDA, to actually assign the graphic card to the respective dedicated VM or even to the RDS server, and we can actually share the GPU processing capability to the users and to the application that actually hosted in the RDS server, right? So let us take deeper and have better understanding on the scenario, right? So the virtual machine that you set up here, right, would be for RD station host, right? For example, so in addition to that, right, we take a look on the two different department type of scenario, right? So first scenario, right, where user from individual department running different application via the remote desktop into the virtual desktop environment. Like for example, for auditor, they can actually log in to do report viewing, right, data analysis, right, and for account department, they can actually log in to do data transaction, viewing the data, and even share document, right? And what even better, for IT personnel, they can actually log in to perform patch management, remote administration, even managing the nested environment, and so on. Right. So in another scenario, right, for department using application that require graphic processing capability, remote desktop services with the VDI also support that with discrete device assignment, right? We call it DDA, right? So in this scenario, right, it will show you that user from for example, for retail department or graphic department that running the program like Adobe Premiere and Adobe Photoshop via the remote desktop connection. They actually can leverage this technology to actually have benefiting the processing power and the processing capability that provided from the GPU, right? So which allowing the user to actually have the environment to actually achieve the goal, like for example, to edit the photo, to render the video, right, in the different scenario, right? So just now is the one that I use the device discrete assignment to actually assign the graphic card into the respective virtual machine, right? And this screen is the one that I actually assign the graphic card to the RD station host and actually publish app and let the user to actually share the graphic card that is assigned in the remote session host server, right? So let's move forward. I wanted to show you how easy is it with a simple graphic interface step by step on how we actually enable the RDS VDI config scenario, right? So from here, we are using the server manager widget, right? And we select the add role. And from here, we actually start to configuring the VDIs for our environment, right? For example, here, we're actually selecting the virtual desktop section, right? And this widget actually got us through to configure the setting like the connection broker server, right? And also the web access server. And of course, the RD virtualization host and so on. But so you can see on the screen here is all actually provided with a graphical interface, step-by-step widget based that guiding the IT administrator to making sure that all the configuration is properly selected and making sure that it's best practices for all the deployment environment. And that's all, right? Once you're selected and you're ready to go and deploy the environment, right? So once it's ready, right? So let's move forward, right? So once the VDI services is up and running, right? So IT administrator will start to create the so-called the collection. The collection is a setting, the deployment setting for the VDI. For example, I will create a single collection for the account department, or I can create another collection for IT department and so on. Right? So collection is a group of configuration that for the VDI environment. Right? So from here, you can select whether it is the full scenario or it's a personal scenario, where you can actually allow individual users to have a dedicated virtual machine in the personal scenario, or it's a full scenario where you can have multiple virtual machine group together as a VM pool and serving the user that actually log into the VDI environment, right? So from here, you can see that it's also the graphical interface widget based that guiding the IT administrator to go through all the steps that is required, right? So from here, you also can actually perform the unattended mode, right? Doing some time zone setting and so on. You can see that the widget actually walk you through all those important steps, right, to have this VDI environment configured, right, and with the best practices available, right, and to make it up and running, right, with a GUI interface, right. So from here, as shown on the screen here, right, MSP administrator is configuring the time zone, right, that going to use in all the virtual machine, right, and also this is the screen where we define who are the users that is allowed and permitted to actually access the remote desktop VDI station, and how many virtual machine that I would like to create, and also the naming convention prefix that I'm going to assign for my VDS machine, the virtual machine, right? And from here, I would like to start from 1 and with the prefix of Windows 11, right? So from here, you can see that I created 3 virtual machines, right? So the first machine will be Windows 11-1, and the second one will be Windows 11-2, and of course, the third one will be Windows 11-3, because I have predefined, I want to create 3 virtual machines and with that prefix. So this will be the virtual machines that I will receive after the widgets has helped us to actually collect all the information that I provided and also go through with the unenable mode, right? So from here, I actually can also specify where to store the user profiles and so on, right? And also the storage, right? Where to keep all the virtualization virtual machine, right? Right, and here also have a setting like whether you want to select auto rollback configuration, right? So once the user log out from the session, the VDI engine will actually automatically roll back the VM to the initial state, right? So all the changes that made by the user will not be saved after the user has been logged off from that environment, from the VDI environment, right? Because it will be rolled back to the initial state, right? So this provide a very good practices for the environment where I only want the users to log in to use the application that actually published or pre-installed in the environment. I don't want the changes are not allowed for the user to make. For example, you created some shortcut or you put some files on top of the desktop where administrator don't want those scenario to be happen. Then you can actually turn on this auto rollback configuration. Right, so that when the user is logged out for the environment, the virtual machine will actually roll back to the initial state and all the changes made will actually be discarded. Right. So as you can see here, is actually provisioning and configuring the 3 virtual machine as per what I actually specified just now, and making sure the collection, the environment is ready. And as you can see from the right hand side of the screen here, all 3 virtual machine is currently in progress. The creating step is in progress and currently is saved, right? So once everything is ready, the VDI engine will actually, the service will actually help to start up the virtual machine and make it ready to serve the customer, serve the end user to actually log in and use the environment. Right. All right. So this is how we actually leverage the server manager, the widget-based configuration patch to actually go through the step-by-step to actually configure the RDS VDI infrastructure. Right. So that's all for me from the perspective of RDS VDI, and hope you enjoy it. And over to you, Ahmad.
Thank you. Thanks for a simple walkthrough and making easy for everyone to understand. Ko. Thanks for
Yeah,
that.
it's very simple because it's using the server manager widget. Right? So it actually works through all the steps together with the person, the IT administrator who configure the environment, but with the best practices, so that is secure and follow the compliant accordingly. Right?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ko. Yeah, so we seen this. What? One second. Yeah. Yeah. So we have seen the greatest walkthrough and the demo from Ko on Windows Server, which is a traditional infrastructure setup for RDS and which has a capability of a VDI2, right? Let's little understand on Azure Virtual Desktop, right? So Azure Virtual Desktop is basically a desktop and application virtualization service which is running on the cloud on Azure, and with the combination of Azure Stack HCI as well, we can run everything from the on-premises perspective. Okay, it actually helps to set up a multi-session on from the client perspective on a Windows 11 or a Windows 10 deployment, which delivers a full-fledged Windows experience with the scalability. Like earlier, what we have seen, one of the option like scaling of a minimum 3. So the same way when we use it on an IVD on an Azure Virtual Desktop, how it works, right? It actually brings existing remote desktop services and Windows Server desktops on the apps to any computer wherever is connected, whoever is accessing from any device. Okay, it actually helps to virtualize both desktops and apps to access from anywhere. It manages the desktops and apps from a different Windows and Windows Server operating system with the unified management experience. Okay, to talk about a little more and depth of it, I would like to just request my teammates, BK, so Lim, BK, and Ko to just share their experiences and give us a walkthrough on the on AVD on Azure and AVD on Azure Stack HCI. Over to you, Ko and BK.
Yes. Hey, Sama, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, can you
Yeah,
see me?
thanks,
Yeah.
Sama.
All right, thanks, Sama. Let me share my screen.
Please.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Sama, for having me actually to share the Azure Virtual Desktop. All right, let's get started right now. Okay, first of all, I think let's just see give you the idea is a high level what is the Azure the Virtual Desktop architecture. All right, if you compare the traditional the on-prem the RDS, right? So what actually you need to manage, basically to manage actually is by you. All right, so now you are actually transfer the responsibility in terms of those components like web access, gateway, blocker, all this actually is fully managed by Microsoft. All right. So this is a high level actually is the architecture actually is from Microsoft from the top. Basically, is from the managed by Microsoft. If they say you deploy right in the middle part, we are refer on the you control, right? So basically, you just actually to fully control what the OS, what this actually is the VM you like actually to deploy on the Azure Virtual Desktop. Definitely all of this actually is the VM, right? If they say talk about the Azure, the cloud here, right? That actually is the underlying actually infrastructure actually managed by Microsoft. Example is a compute. Example, they say you use the storage. Definitely also a networking. So having said so, with this actually just now the high level the architecture, right? So in come to this slide here, right? They give you actually is the summary. So we already gone through just now actually is the Azure the Virtual Desktop. Basically, is a centralized management from an Azure portal. But however, when come to the Azure Virtual Desktop section host, this is what we're referring here, right? In terms of the VM, what we want to deploy on the Azure Virtual Desktop, yeah, all right, infrastructure here. So we have this two scenario. This we drill in a little bit. Actually, is what the in what the situation actually is from a portal perspective here, right? What actually option we need to choose? If they say I want to deploy right on the Azure VM, or if I want to deploy the VM on the Azure Stack HCI. Just let me actually is switching over to the Azure portal. Yeah, all right, this is a quick one. All right, when actually is come to this Azure portal, I click the Azure Virtual Desktop. That we create a host pool here, right? Definitely you selecting what actually is your the resources group, and of course the host name here. All right, let's put the host pool actually is host pool number 3. Yep. All right. Okay, and of course, we can select which the host the pool type, whether it's a personal or pool here. All right. So in the scenario here, actually, I show you actually is a pool here. So what is the maximum section and so on? Let me just put the 3 the section the limit. All right. Come to the next actually is a screen. This is actually to give you the actually is option here, right? If you read the carefully here, right? This is the option actually is what actually is a VM, right? In which the environment you would like to select. Example, if you go for the add Azure the VM, you just click the yes. If you want actually to add the virtual machine from Azure Stack HCI, then you select no. Then of course, then you just click the next. So from the time due to actually is the time constraint here, right? So I already deployed the Azure Virtual Desktop, yeah, which actually is just a quick show you here, right? Once actually you successfully deploy the VM here, right? Then actually they will appear the virtual machine at the section host. In my case here, right, this actually is one VM has been deployed on the Azure Virtual Desktop host pool here. So in here, right, whether this actually VM actually can come from the Azure VM or VM actually from the Azure Stack HCI. All right. Okay, now let's switching back actually to my slide. So once actually you can be deployed this section host on the Azure Virtual Desktop infrastructure, then come to the last part that actually from the end user, the device perspective. So end user actually they can use the native remote desktop client, or you can using the HTML file, basically it's a web client. So I'm going actually to demo with you, right? How I can use this web client to virtually connect, yeah, Azure Virtual Desktop here. So together with me, I have the code. Actually, is the demo. This is the Azure Virtual Desktop. Right. Let's get started right now.
Yeah.
Our demo here. Right. Cool. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Now.
That's it.
Okay, now let's actually assumption actually you already have the URL login, then they will definitely prompt you is the user ID and password. Yep. Right. So basically when you enter the user ID password, then after that you get the successful actually log into the Azure virtual desktop. Yeah. This is the web client. So from here, right, actually they were showing you, right, this is the workspace actually is a have. Yeah. All right. So definitely, actually, once actually you log into this section host, what actually is appear on the workspace here, right? All right. So let's actually is ask actually is code here, right? Code is very experienced in the this what I call it the VDI actually environment etc. What is the business actually is the case here, right? In the past experience, how can we apply the business case in the VDI here? Code, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, VK. I think as what VK mentioned, right, on the VDI screen just now, right, there is a VDI workspace area where you can actually IT administrator can actually configure different the VDI workspace for different groups of users, right? So once the user log into the AVD environment, right, and it will actually assign with the environment that actually pre-configured by the IT administrator, right? Like for example here, where the user actually log into the environment, right? And yeah, maybe VK you want to switch back again, right? And go back to the screen, right?
Sorry.
So once the user actually log into the environment, right? So as you can see here, the IT administrator can actually, like for example, one of it, the most very important one, right? Configure the how to say that, the network share, right, to the user who actually log into the environment, right? So from here, the users from different departments can actually have the file sharing and collaboration between different departments, right? Like for example, the retail department, they can even leverage the tools like Power BI to actually have an overview and to run the reporting dashboard that is actually created and shared in the environment. Like for example, right, some of the retail data has been updated, some of the entry has been entered, right, and the sales report has been updated, it's refreshed, right? So the retail department actually go in and log into the AVD environment and click on this the Power BI dashboard that is shared in the departmental shared folder. But the retail personnel can actually drill in and use the powerful reporting dashboard to have perspective understanding and market trend analysis to the data that actually present. Like for example, you can actually select and view the data for different quarter and even different area. Right? So this is how powerful it is by using the AVD, right, with the file sharing and collaboration between the different departments, right? Where all the colleges and the staff can actually share and view the content in the centralized managed environment, right? So this is very powerful, and not limited to that, right? Customer and users can also run some in-house application, right? You may say that, oh, is it some of the in-house customized application can be run in an AVD environment, right? And the answer is yes, right? As illustrated here, right, I actually go through a setup and a deployment scenario where I actually configured the one of the accounting system that we use in some of the most of the company in Malaysia, right? And from here, how we can actually leverage the AVD, the desktop, the virtualized desktop environment, that with this accounting system published into the environment and let all the accounting stuff, right, for example, to actually log into the environment, to do data entry, to change the chart of account setting, like for example, even updates the accounting and financial data into it. Right, this is something that achievable, right, and it's one of the very powerful features that are provided by AVD, that allowing all the user to log into the set environment and share it and use the even the in-house application, right? And on top of that, not limited to that, right? We can also liberate the tools like Microsoft, like for example, the management, right? Manager and management is actually outside of the office or even traveling, how they can actually log in the AVD environment, even using their Android phone, right? And access the Microsoft Excel that actually published in the folder, and open the Excel dashboard that actually shared by, maybe prepared by the marketing people, like for the manager to actually review the customer data, customer sales report and corporate sales report and so on, right? So these are the greatest capability that we can actually liberate by using the Azure Virtual Desktop, right? And of course, since we actually understand the capability and the features that provided by the Azure Virtual Desktop, it also goes like for BK to actually elaborate a little bit on how customer can actually prepare and actually plan on the deployment of the scenario by have better and clearer understanding about how we actually calculate the cost and the amount, the subsequent amount that we use to leverage these features and capability, right? So maybe BK can have a better elaboration on this area.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Cole. I think that is the amazing actually sharing, right? We can actually use the VDI to apply the different this type of the business scenario. All right. Of course, come to the costing here, right? I think in this slide here, right, you guys actually can see on the left-hand side here, right? Actually, they will talk about the licensing, the cost here, all right? So majority customer today, mostly actually they have the subscription. Basically, it's refer to the subscription on the M365. They are eligible actually to have the access, right? Or not? On the right-hand side here, right? Basically, remember just now actually I share with you, right? When we want to deploy the infrastructure, example like VM, all right? So this VM actually, they say in the Azure, the cloud here, right? That actually is the OS. Example, the OS we can choose actually is Windows 11, whether it's a single section or multiple section. You might have actually that some of the infrastructure you want to use it. So all of this actually infrastructure actually deploy here, right? That actually will involve the costing. Of course, let me just show you actually the next slide here, right? Remember just now I talked about this the licensing actually is eligible to those customer can be accessed the VDI here. So on the client side, that actually is the Windows 11, Windows 10. So assumption actually you already have a license on the E3, E5, Business Premium, and so on. Let's say you are deployed the VM on the Windows Server OS here. That actually is the RDS the cloud. All right. So this is a high level actually in terms of the I show you just now on the left hand side what is the eligible customer actually can be use this the VDI here. All right. Now, so let's jumping actually to the next here, right? I'm actually want to demonstrate how can we use this Azure pricing the calculator help you to give you the cost estimation, right? What actually will be the spending? What actually is estimation cost? If they say I deploy the VM, right? If they deploy those other resources on the Azure Virtual Desktop on cloud here. All right, let's have a look on the price calculator. Okay, if you come to this actually is the browser here, right? So that actually just go to the URL, then you can be reaching this price calculator site here. All right. So through the price calculator, basically they can help you to not only just give you a cost estimation on the AVD. Of course, today of the scenario actually give you the Azure Virtual Desktop scenario. Just typing in the Azure Virtual Desktop, then you just click the option, right? That appear to you, yeah. And definitely you click the view button actually to you, then actually by showing you this is the option actually you can be what they call it to estimate, yeah, to estimate what is the cost you may be actually to spend, yeah. Right. So example in my scenario, I will select actually my region is the Southeast Asia region, yeah. All right. Up on actually where the actually region you are, right or not? Yeah. Then the second part actually that is the VDI, the type here, right? So either you can select pool, either you can select this the desktop here. You click this the information icon that will give you what actually is a description about this the VDI, the type here. So come to the section configuration here, you can actually select the multi-section, single section here, right? So that also would be the information icon give you the what is the different and so on. Yeah, and the workload type as well here. All right, assumption they say actually we use the workload type is a power or maybe heavy here. So they actually will give you actually is the what is the assume that user actually is per CPU core. If you want to find out the virtual machine sizing, basically is the other tier here, right? You can just click the link just now. Yeah. All right. So our take assumption here actually is a 50 user. Yeah, 50 user. Okay. And of course, you can actually to supply some of those the concurrency, the information. Basically, you talk about your peak concurrency. What is the maximum actually it will be used, and 5% of this in my example is a 5% of the peak off peak. Yeah, all right. So of course, come to the external user. Yeah, they say your the VDI, you not only just for the internal, but we say the external here, we are referring maybe the partner, maybe the vendor would like actually to access. So in my demo here, so I don't actually select. All right. So then the following here, right? They give you the virtual machine, the category. Either you can choose all or GPU, maybe the memory optimized or and so on. Yeah. All right. So when actually you select those particular category, on the right hand side, the instant here, right? They will give you that this is the category belongs to. So mine actually is demo here to use GPU here, right? Then they will give you the N series of the VM. Okay. And come to the last part here, right? Yeah. Come to the last part here. So then actually you can be the safe. Yeah. They say you already satisfied. All right. Of course, before we save it, definitely you also still can view. What is the cost saving? If they say I choose the reserve the instant, those are the benefit. They give you the good discount here, right? Basically, it's the upfront, actually it's a 1 year or 2 year and so on. So in the next actually scenario on this the Azure Virtual Desktop, the pricing, the calculator here, right? Then actually in the particular VM, right? What actually is the hard disk or storage disk actually you want to allocate? Then they give you that is the estimate the costing as well. And come to the last part here, actually that is the fast storage. All right, you may want to use the FS logic. All right, what is the FS logic? Basically, in general, is the user profile technology. Yeah, all right. So you may actually deploy the fast storage for to support this FS logic. Actually, is the purpose here. All right, user profile. Okay. Then, of course, just now I say last part here, right? Then you can save it, you can export it actually as an Excel file. Maybe you can use this actually as an Excel file to present actually to your customer. What is that the cost estimation you will be the spend here, all right? So that actually is on the demo on the price, the calculator. All right, of course, let's talk about the last part, right or not? Yeah, that actually is on the Azure, the Virtual Desktop on cloud, the pricing. How about if you're interested? Remember, we talked about we have a 2 scenario. So in this scenario, actually, we want to deploy the VM, yeah, on the Azure Stack HCI. So what is the cost here? All right, definitely the hardware cost actually you need to be count in, right or not? All right, of course. How about the actually is the VDI actually is the costing. Today actually is no charge. Yeah, at this time, at this current time, no charge because they're still in the preview. All right, so that's what actually is my demo. Yeah, Ahmad, right, over to you.
Thank you very much, DK and Co. I think it simplifies to everyone to understand that how easy it is and how it is optimized when we are looking for certain solutions. And one of a bigger point which you actually pointed out is Azure Stack HCI preview with AVD is actually free. That's very big important benefit as of now if any customer would like to try on it. And one good thing is the price calculation actually helps any end user or individual person to understand how actually it can be differentiating when they're considering these new technologies, right? Yeah. So going further, I would like to know a little bit more, right? Little bit more like on Azure Stack HCI. For example, we know from a long time that Azure Stack HCI is something which used to be just starting with minimum of 2 nodes from the Microsoft perspective, right? So that's something which changed in the last year from May 2022 when Microsoft announced it. So the minimum configuration to start with is actually a single node. Means with a single node server, Azure Stack HCI setup can be made, okay? And with the 22H2, that is something which is something more scalable, okay? And which if customer would like to add on more servers, right? And which they want to scale up to, right? As per the earlier standards, which is continuation, right? It can be scaled up to 16 nodes per cluster and 4 petabyte storage per cluster. That something is there, but the minimum is something which is a single node, okay? For the same, I think I would like to request my colleague Ko to just help us to give a demo, a quick walkthrough on Azure Stack HCI 22H2 single node deployment. Ko, are you available?
Yes. Thanks,
Thank
Sama.
you.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So thanks, Sama. Thanks for the great sharing and good information that shared. Now we can go even smaller in the Azure Stack HCI with single node configuration, right? Except by another style, right? And this is a very affordable solution that start even with single node deployment, right? And this is where the starting point of the single node cluster coming in, right? In May last year, right? And thanks for Amar sharing it, right? Microsoft released the single node support, right? And as you can see from the screen here, single node configuration actually become and with the same capability that provided with the multiple configuration, right? The only difference is the stress cluster configuration, right? Because initially we know that the stress cluster actually require a minimum of 4 server, 2 per site, right? And a maximum of 16 server and 8 per site, right? So let me walk you through on the demo on how we actually setting up the single node Azure Stack HCI's cluster, right? And this is the area how we can actually use this single node deployment to actually host our Azure Virtual Desktop deployment, and which is currently still in preview and allowing us to actually test and simulate the scenario in our environment, especially go with the customer to do a POC and test the scenario, right? And also something that is really good in the preview section is free, right? And of course, if we are actually facing any issue during the testing and simulation, we can always give feedback to Microsoft product team, right? And actually to have an interaction with them to actually to have a better user experience, right? So from here, you can see that I'm actually setting up the single node cluster using the PowerShell and created a single volume using PowerShell. Right. So once the configuration and the deployment of the single node using the PowerShell is completed, right, we will actually leverage web-based tools called Windows Admin Center, which is a free tools that provided by Microsoft to actually manage the cluster environment, right? In my scenario, it's a single node cluster, right? The cluster in single node deployment, right? Single node setup, right? So from here, we're actually using the Windows Admin Center to actually manage this single node cluster, right? I'm typing the cluster name and provide the credential that allows the administrator to actually log into the environment, right? And by leveraging the Windows Admin Center tools, right, the IT administrator can actually have an overview, right, of the status of the cluster that is being set up just now, right, which is a single node deployment, right. Let's hold for a while. So with the credential that is actually provided with the rights to actually access the manageability of the cluster, right, it will actually land in this dashboard in the Windows Admin Center, right. For the dashboard here, IT administrator can have the overview, right, of this single node cluster, right. So you're not even how to say that you no longer need to use the PowerShell. Not only can use the PowerShell to actually manage the environment, you can also use the Windows Admin Center tools to actually manage this single node deployment. Right? As you can see here, my cluster has not yet registered to Azure. It's just freshly been configured just now using the PowerShell and with a single volume created. Right? And here we can use the web-based interface, the graphical tools to actually manage our cluster. Like for example, here I can have a detailed overview of the revision number, the OS build number for my single node, right? For my single node cluster, right? So administrator can actually adjust the column depending on the information that he want to see, right? In order to manage the environment, right? So that it is actually meet the requirement for the IT administrator to manage the different environment, even in different cluster, right? So from here, you can see that my single node cluster is running on 22H2, right? And this is the screen where you can have the overview of the resources for that particular node, right? And the dashboard just now is actually as an overview for the cluster, right? And from here, we can actually drill in to have an overview of the volume, right? The single volume that I created just now, and also manage the drive, right? From here, using the Windows Admin Center, and you can also group the drive based on the server, right? So when we actually scale from one node to two node, right? All the drive will actually group according to the server that is being attached. Right? So this is how we actually use the Windows Admin Center to actually manage the single node cluster environment, right? That we actually configured, right? So, and of course, well, after we have registered the cluster to Azure, we can actually leverage the Azure hybrid capability to actually manage the cluster using Azure Portal. Right, so this is the area that I want to cover, right? About how to set up the single node cluster and how we can actually use the Windows Admin Center to actually work as a gateway to manage the cluster. And in the near future, we actually connect to Azure and use Azure to achieve our Azure hybrid management capability. All right, over to you, Amar.
Thank you, Ko. I think it's something an eye opener for every individual, and to understand that how simplified this scalable technology is becoming, and it's helpful for every organizations, right? Especially with the Windows Admin Center management, right? Thanks for that. First of all, when we all see these kind of scenarios, we get a simple question that, oh, it's very good, but how do we actually understand? How do we see? Is it comfortable for our environments? How do we actually evaluate? This is something comes to you all mind, right? So let me just help you out a little more depth of it. Okay, so from the recent announcements of Intel, right, with the 4th generation processors as well, it has more computing power with the capabilities which can be helpful of 10x AI based intelligence, and it can be supporting network and storage on the 2x level, and it can be helpful with the data analytics of a 3x level up to, right? That is something which has been brought across from the latest technologies from Intel as well. So to make it a simplified thing, how do we evaluate the configurations of a HCI, right? So the Azure Stack HCI. Let me just give a simple walkthrough on the Azure Stack HCI catalog, okay? So there is a portal called hcicatalog.azurewebsites.net. So that is where you can able to browse various solutions or the configurations of a Microsoft recommended Azure Stack HCI. Okay, to make it simple.
Sorry, Amar. Just to let you know, we have another 7 minutes to the clock.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks for that. Yeah. So when we want to know that how many options we have as an end customer, right? So we need to understand from where, right? So for example, Microsoft made it very simple. There are two main design approaches for way of evaluating the HCI configurations. That's the one is called as an integrated. Integrated means very simple. It's basically like an appliance approach. Okay. And the second one is called as a validated node, which is considered for certified configurations where you have a flexibility of choosing your components or various CPUs or various storages and the memory requirements. Okay. So when you go a little bit deeper on this website, the catalog, you can see all the Dell, HP, Lenovo's configurations which has been certified or which has been recommended for using of various HCI solutions. Okay, and we are talking more about the affordability today, right? For example, right, if I want to showcase just from 1 to 4 nodes, there is a lot of options, including Lenovo, including HP, Dell, every configuration if you scroll down, right? So basically, the HCI solution is no more just with a single node, with the 2 nodes. It's basically starting with single node as well, right? Now, if we want to go a little bit more, right, the design of a virtual desktop infrastructure, the today's hot topic, what we are talking, almost 67 solutions are available from Dell, HP, Lenovo's, by the way, right? This is something very great, which is very much important to us. And basically, if we go through each and every configuration, we have a customized options. We can choose whichever the brand we require, and we can able to take it up to a next level. Okay. And one thing which we need to keep in mind is we need to just select based on the regional so that you can see. So for example, for the Asia, when I see no changes, almost 67 solutions are available on 17 platforms. Okay. This is how easily we can able to go and evaluate the requirements of different configurations for our day-to-day infrastructure needs, right? So with this, I would like to just come back to request my colleague for giving a walkthrough on Windows 365 as well. So in a simple line, Windows 365 is simple solution for SMBs to directly adopt a virtual desktop access through Azure, okay, where you can able to have a customized requirements of it, and it is ready for SMB requirements, which is more helpful for managing your content, helping for your speed of requirement, managing your services overall on the go from any device to connect. Okay, would like to just request Ko to come down and help us to give us a simple walkthrough on Windows 365. Ko, you there?
Yes. Thanks, Sama.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Thanks, Sama. All right. So thanks for the sharing. And it's also good for us to know that the Windows 365, one of the virtual desktop infrastructure solution that currently provided by Microsoft. Right? Windows 365 is a cloud-based services that automatically creates a new types of Windows virtual machine, right? Or we call it Cloud PC, right? For your end user, and provide the productivity, security, collaboration benefit of the Microsoft 365. Right. So you can imagine a scenario, right? So if the IT administrator wanted to provision and deploy, let's say 50 or 100 of virtual machine with a Windows 11 in a short period of time, and it might take some time for you to actually to prepare the environment in the RDS VDI, the AVD to actually spin out the environment. And IT administrator can actually leverage the Cloud PC technology that quickly spin out the environment and within a very short period of time, and actually deprovision it when the requirements are no longer there. Right. So this is the screen that the demo that I want to show you how we can actually access the Windows 365, the Cloud PC from the web browser, right? And of course, you can also access the Cloud PC from the remote desktop app, right? The client, right? And with the authentication that provided by the IT administrator, the user can actually access the Windows 365, the virtual machine everywhere, right? From your Android or from your Windows 11, your machine, machine, and even Mac OS, and on. So from here, once you're logged in, user can actually get a virtual desktop. Right? Here is a Windows 11 virtual desktop running on the cloud. Right? It's a cloud machine, and from here, same as the AVD environment, right, the administrator can actually configure the shared folder that actually links to the Azure file share. Right, from here, not limited to that. Right, you can see that I can also let the user to actually run the Power BI reporting dashboard that I run in the AVD environment just now, as what I shared. Right? So from here, right, you can imagine the colleague that perhaps only have an Android device, and he or she want to actually access the dashboard, right, inside the corporate environment, right? And this provide a capability, right, for the user to actually temporarily log in, right? On the remote location that goes into the cloud machine, like for example, the cloud PC, right? And log into the environment, and the administrator have all the shared folder and all the files that shared among the department is being shared and made ready in the environment that for the user to access, right? So this is how powerful it is that we actually leverage the cloud machine, right? The Windows 365 that can actually achieve the goal, right? And not limited to that, the file shares like the Power BI and of course the Microsoft Office that is already pre-configured in the environment, right? So Alma, that's all for me, right? In the perspective of the Windows 365, right? The
Thank
cloud
you.
machine that provided by Microsoft.
Thank you, Ko. Thank you. So it's a
Okay.
simple message out to everyone today, or whoever is there on the live, right? So virtual desktop infrastructure, like earlier, it is not tough. It's very easy. It's very simple. It's affordable. Okay. We have various scenarios from the traditional infrastructure from Windows Server perspective to avail the best of a technology from HCI perspective, and to start with a single node for the scaling of the requirements for the storage, or the last option is from the Windows 365 aspect, right? So thank you. Thanks for everyone to join, and see you in our next Tech Talk series, which is just scheduled in the month of May. And we have upcoming little more detailed sessions in between too. Okay. So this is where you can come across with your questions and help requirement to us. So this is an email ID where you can send us a queries or support requirements when you are doing on your live. As in the initial we said, we just don't want to do a demo. We wanted to help you to ignite and help you out to scale up or speedily go for your customer needs to help accordingly. Okay. Thank you for the great session. Thanks, Ko. Thanks, BK. Thanks everyone for the lively session. Thank you, everyone. Signing off for today's session, and see you in the next session. Bye.
Thanks, Alma. Thanks, BK. Bye.
Thanks, bye.